Welcome to Your Way Forward, a podcast where you can expect to find wisdom for uncertain times. Our podcast is hosted by me, Nicole Artabassi, along with my friends, spiritual teachers, and intuitive soul guides, Jenny Fairbank and Stephen Ross. Tune in each week as we unpack some of the hardest things that we're navigating in the world, from shared societal challenges to deeply personal life experiences. Our desire is that each soul who joins us experiences truth, love, and hope as they take their steps forward in life. Oh, and I should mention, we aren't just sharing our thoughts and opinions on here. Jenny and Stephen will be live channeling their spirit guides who will respond to your questions in our Ask the Guides minisodes. If you find our episodes helpful and worth sharing with a friend, feel free to spread the word. We're not here to gain a massive following, but rather to be a space for people to find guidance and light on their journey. Now, let's get into it. Well, hello there. Welcome, everyone. Your Way Forward. I believe this is our 5th or maybe 6th podcast now, aside from our mini episodes. But good to see you, Jenny. Good to see you, Stephen. How are things going?
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Great.
Nice.
Little warm in California, I hear right now.
Oh, it's actually beautiful up here in Northern California. It's in the 60s.
Oh, nice. Okay, so the heat wave was down south, I guess. Awesome.
Yeah, we got a little one last week, but it's been beautiful.
Okay. That's awesome. And Stephen, how are you
Austin
doing?
is roasting hot already.
Yeah.
It's post spring break, and I think outdoor pool opens in my neighborhood in 2 weeks.
There you go.
So that's how hot.
Summer in Austin is like, end of February to like December 24th, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Thanksgiving at least.
Yeah. Well, we have had, actually, I would like to take a moment just for all of the people who've gone through outrageous devastation here in Hawaii. We've had the Kona low storms, and I know that if you are listening and you're not in Hawaii and you're in other places, you may or may not have heard, because we know the news is such an interesting thing in our land, right, to partake of. And oftentimes it doesn't get, depending on your algorithms, you may not understand what's going on in other parts of the world. But we had some devastating floods, storm come through about 2 weeks ago that devastated parts of Maui, parts of, I think, small parts of Kauai, and Oahu got hit very bad. And so another storm came through right on the heels of it, which, flash flooding because the ground couldn't absorb. And so a lot of people are displaced right now. And we were lucky ones up here. We're just in up country, so a little higher elevation and a very protected land because of the horticulture. But yeah, if we could, I would just like to take a second for everybody that's gone through the devastation and is still trying to recover, and it might be a long time. So if we could, if you're listening to us, if you're driving in your car, I'd love to just take a moment of silence for everyone here in Hawaii who's going through some pretty difficult times. So we'll just take a moment. And as we do, just send all love and strength to our fellow souls here. Mm. We see each and every one of you, and whether you're a kapuna who's elderly, whether you've lost all of your possessions and didn't have insurance, we see you. And we just call upon the collective to stand beside you, and we ourselves are here to serve. So thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
And then just even expanding that all out to the world, because there are so many who are suffering in this now moment.
Right.
In
Yes.
war-torn areas and poverty and drought, fires. So
Yeah.
blessings to everyone on the planet.
Yes. And we're going to be talking today about a subject that is undeniable, what's happening right now. Today, we're going to be talking about the paradigm shift that's happening. I know I'm very eager. I've been talking to a lot of people lately, and especially older people, right? And asking them, like, what's happening right now? I met someone recently she's 100 years old. And, people that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s who've lived through and seen a lot in that period of time. And, people always say, nothing new under the sun. And so I've asked people, like, is this for your lifetime, for 100 years? Is this new? Like, what's happening right now? And just to be very clear, I'm not specifically just talking about politics. I'm not just talking about, climate change or the issues with natural disasters, but just in general, like what is happening in our world, in the cosmos, like what's happened and where are we headed and what has brought us here? And so I know that's very near and dear to both of your hearts and mine. And I have a lot more questions than answers, and you might as well. But I would love for us to today just to talk about that and what's happening, because I think this is probably on all of our minds. And at a small level, we're trying to figure out how to care for ourselves, our families, and set up the next generation. And what does this mean? What does this look like? And how do we make decisions that are going to help and not hurt as we progress? So I'll just take a pause there. And any initial thoughts?
So,
Just yeah, go for it.
yeah, well, what did this 100-year-old person say to you?
She didn't say a whole lot. It was a combined kind of conversation, I think, but I have had other people in their 70s and 80s when I've asked them, and they said, no, 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 this is new. Like, I've never seen something like this happen. My uncle was one that I spoke to at length about this. And I said, Uncle John, what on earth, like in your lifetime, I think he's pushing 80 right now. I said, have you, like, is this new or is this just different? And he says, oh no, Nicole, this is completely different than I've ever seen. I actually don't know what to make of it or where we're going.
Well, it's interesting because one of I feel like the terms that has been happening for us since before COVID or around COVID is unprecedented. Everybody's saying that word, right? This is unprecedented, unprecedented times, unprecedented. And because there's so much truth to it, it's just the word that flies around all over the place.
Yeah.
So
It's
there's a lot to share about this topic.
right. Stephen, I know you're
And I don't know
probably,
who wants
yeah, yeah.
to start.
Yeah, I'm trying to like disseminate it down to a few talking points, but honestly, it's a 30-minute answer to your question.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd
let's
like
break
to,
it down into some specific. You want to break it down into small nuggets then, and just kind of like maybe start with what does paradigm shift mean?
yeah. Okay, I'll try small nuggets, Nikki, but it's big. Okay, so we're looking at a worldview now, an understanding of life and reality, and that's unprecedented in known history. And there's a shift in the level of consciousness. Now that sounds a bit woo-woo at first, but I want you to imagine a major shift happens in our understanding of reality. It really happens around 1900 in particular, where you see there's an outer change in science that says, hey, everything is fixed form, rigid material. This is what you see and get. And then all of a sudden, that all just completely changes. And now we have energy, electricity, split the atom, quantum field, and there's a whole new worldview. Now, our teachers, who are the yogis of India, the gurus that came, they said that same splitting of the atom, so to speak, happens internally. And so now our connection to life, the divine, that has like what was fixed like an old rigid way of God's up here in a cloud and we're down here, all of a sudden that split open. And now we're in this new energy field.
Okay, I'm going to have you pause. I'm sorry, just for my own understanding, and maybe a lot of listeners that are like me.
Please.
When you say you've gone into a realm I don't understand. So you're splitting what? So can you get more specific? Is it an energy? Is an understanding within us, and that something external has happened and it's also at the same time happened internally? Maybe can you just simplify what
Yeah,
you
it's both
just said?
external and internal. So think of the old era, the Dark Ages, as
Mhm.
an age of material or matter. Now we live in an age of energy. So
And
we
the
go
energy's
from
always
literally
been like this.
it's
It's
always
just our
been there, but it's
understanding that it's
fading.
there.
Correct, correct. It's always been there. The atoms have always been compressed. That hasn't changed. Gravity, it was there long before we came up with a word for
Right,
it and
right,
invented it. It was always
right.
there, but we
Yeah.
just didn't see it. But now, imagine a casing or a cage of that has opened. And now we've got access to this energy field, okay? And that it changes our connection to each other, to life, to nature, and ultimately to God. Even the God word doesn't make any sense anymore because it's not this man on a cloud who's angry. It's something different. And so when you access this new amount of energy, when you split an atom literally, it's packed full of massive energy. Just one
Mm,
atom.
mm. Right.
Imagine now we just unpacked a whole new energy. You could say with technology, we have access to the grown-ups tools. We got the matches, but we're still immature on the inside. And so what happens is, as you end up in this new energy, the extremes of how people can be have magnified. So the negative becomes stronger, the light becomes stronger, and so on. So we're seeing these extremes all over the place.
Yeah. So obviously, when we recognize the atom could be split and we understand what that is from a scientific point of view, we've studied this in school. Um, you're saying that the same thing is also happening within us. Basically, as you could say, the veil's been torn, the blinders have been removed,
Mhm.
and so what we had just kind of lived here, now it's been opened up to where now our awareness has been opened. Is that what you're to the energy and to
Mhm.
the
Yes.
realm that we live in have never acknowledged? Maybe, Jenny.
Yes, agreed. Now, in, yeah, I'll be as quick as I can, Jenny. So she's
Go
bursting.
ahead.
Um,
Go ahead.
so understand that in the old paradigm, over 2,000 years, we had structures in place for everything that worked to a point. It was pretty grim to live back then, but you were told this is God, this is your place, this is what
Right.
you do. We have structures for everything. Somewhere around 17, 1800, that changes and we get new structures. The problem is people are also changing and they don't like the structure. So there's this tension. And ultimately, if I can give you a nugget here, when we have new awareness, instead of the fixed rules, thou shalt not, now here you go, you're free in the new world, do what you want, but there's still consequence to that.
Mm.
And
Right.
now you got to grow up and make healthy choices, but you're free to make them. And so this is a new energy. The problem is you're free to watch the internet all day. You're free to get caught in dark chat rooms. I mean, you're free for everything, but you need to be really aware. And so because of that, it makes what we call the dual or the two opposites become more and more magnified. And it's not a political statement. It's a higher, lower energy. Jenny, help me here if
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think for people who are really new to listening to this and understanding this, when you look at what humanity is going through right now, what we're moving from and into is we're moving from an externally driven identity
Ooh.
where it's about control, the feeling of separation, the feeling the external is there's an authority that's over us that we are controlled whether we realize that or not. We were and are still to an internally guided self. So we are all feeling like a lot of us are feeling we don't want the authority anymore. We don't want someone to tell us how to live and what to do. And this idea of even that we've had in this country of the United States, the American dream, and that's been projected and programmed into us. And we're waking up to that doesn't serve us, that isn't fun, is like we thought it was going to be. That didn't work.
Mhm.
We're working really, really hard and hard and hard and hard to get the things we think we should have. So we're moving away from the shoulds and we're moving into what really serves me as an individual and what is my purpose. And people are more curious about the purpose of their life and not
Mhm.
just what they feel like they should do in terms of what society has deemed it to be right or wrong or good. And so we're starting to think for ourselves versus these external paradigms that have been projected onto us. But there's a lot.
Wow.
There's a lot. These
Yes,
old
this is a
systems need to
lot. Yes.
collapse, right?
There's one more
Yeah,
thing I can add, if it's okay. This is a little
please.
bit, there's a little controversy here, okay, but I'll keep it as tame as I can. As the old world structures decline and crumble, I personally believe we have new, more subtle versions of these mechanisms rise. So we might say, you're going to the new world, you're free, but then there's now economic, financial constraints. There's a whole host of things. They're different than before, and they're more subtle. So this comes down to this thing where, like, you think you're free, but are you? It's up for debate. And then so there's a different structure now, but where it's a little bit more thin almost, or subtle. You don't see it the same way, but it's there. And so this is the hard part for people, is realizing, like, what is imposing on us and how do we truly free ourselves. And but this is this massive struggle right now, but it's revolutionary.
So, I mean,
We're in a conscious
essentially,
revolution right now.
right. Ooh, conscious revolution. I feel that immensely. And all that you're saying, I agree with. And for any listener who has not, been exposed to maybe some of this conversation, I'm right there with you with a lot of this stuff. And also, I'm understanding what you're saying. And I've read through, I've been reading the yugas, which are the different ages. And um, let me ask a question. So it sounds like from what you're explaining, it's almost like before a new way is happening, we're aware of it, right? And to be aware of something you need to move into, you have to be aware of what's happened, right? We always talk about, like, history is a powerful thing, right? There's a reason that you understand what's happened in past, because it dictates future, right? It dictates your present and your future. And so what I'm hearing you say, both of you, is that we have been in a place that was, for reasons we can discuss or not, there's been a societal norm and understanding for humanity to live in. And we have been these little monkeys who've just done the things. And, maybe in the 1950s it worked. Who knows? Like, I didn't live, so I didn't live it. So I don't know what felt right or good, and what lifestyle looked like. But we're moved into this realm where we're like, wait a minute. And I think of this book called The Progressive Trap, which I actually, if I'm just going to bring this up, and for whatever it's worth, but The Progressive Trap talked about how, just to give an example to what you're saying, maybe I think it's fictional, but there were all these men in an indigenous village who would go out and they would hunt every year in the winter for these mammoth and bring it back, and they, for their families to eat on in the village. And then one year they're like, well, let's bring more men and we can collect more mammoth. And then they were like, oh, great, we have to go out less now in the freezing cold. And then it kept happening to where they finally were like, wait a minute, if everybody goes out at once, if we all go out and over-engineer this thing and we can collect so many more mammoth. And then they brought them all back, and then they feasted, and they were having this grand old time. And then they ate all the mammoth and they were extinct. And civilization couldn't keep going. And so I have to use examples in my brain to understand these very complex ideologies. And even if they're true, they're still complex because it's new to my brain. And so essentially, we've been in that place where we were like, cool, this worked, the American dream, the white picket fence. We have our little lawns, we mow and we do this, and we have a job that now is 9 to 5, and the woman stays home, or whoever. We have these rules of engagement in life. And now we're waking up to saying, wait a minute, it's only snowballed to where now we're working 18-hour days, exhausted, not able to care for our children. And actually now we can't even afford a home, much less gas prices. And we vote and we don't know if our votes even matter anymore. And how do we get out of this, right? How do we get out of this and survive and set up for the next generation, right? So I just wanted to, for me and all the listeners out there trying to digest this, is this kind of what you're saying? And now we're like at this place of awareness of it, but we don't fully know what to do. And it's scary.
Yeah.
Let's just say the words. It can be very scary looking around.
It's frightening.
Yeah.
It's frightening. Yeah. My point really is that, yes, all the things you said, I'm with you. However, it's important to understand there is a greater context behind it, which is causing the disruption. the collapse, the destruction, and also the rebirth. Everything in nature goes through the destruction and the rebirth. And so we're seeing a part of something that takes a very long time to go through. It doesn't just happen overnight, although there's certain inflection points we're clearly going through one, it seems, are pretty darn close to it, where you get these big moments, so like Rome fell in a certain time. There's even that seemed impossible 50 years prior to it, but it fell. So you got to think in the longer time here and something shifting us and changing us. It's ultimately benevolent, but it's a little bit like having a crisis where now you're ending old patterns so you can begin again. But the in-between place is the unknown. People don't like the in-between place. And we still have to go through that. Like, hold on a second. What does it mean to be alive? What does life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness really mean? Did we have it? Can we have it?
Can I want to just, before we keep going here, I just want to call one thing out that dropped in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of listeners, when you talk about setting up that, that we were programmed and that things were set up and that we've just gone into this and now we're like bucking the system. I'm curious to know, because there's a natural instinct of blame, right? Who do we blame, right? And so I know right now, looking around, I know, Jenny, I know what you're thinking here, and I'm going somewhere with this, but humans want to blame, right? Like what was the root cause of this? Who, right? Let's get very personal here. Who can we blame? And right now, with what's going on politically, everybody wants to blame someone. And I've noticed this happen in these disasters, these natural disasters. And sometimes it's like, well, I don't know that any one person caused a natural disaster to happen. I mean, I think things happen. And so I also just want to say that maybe, and I'm curious what you think, blame can be a distraction from what's actually happening, because we all participate in society, no matter what was set up for us to engage in or not. We all have choice. And so I just want to comment that instead of getting trapped, because I just did mentally wanting to find blame can be a distraction, right? Blame can distract from like really what's going on deeper. And instead of focusing on what did happen or what we've gone through, focus on where we're headed and what can happen. Is that a good posture to take in thinking through this? What are your thoughts?
It's very difficult when you come into the reality, the remembrance that we are all conscious. Everything is consciousness and everything is oneness. And that is what we have lost. The dark ages, we lost the idea, that the remembrance that we are one energy. And so we've been living in separation identity, that, I have to protect myself and I don't care about you because it's about me, and very ego driven. And that is falling away. That contractive consciousness is falling away, and we are starting to understand even the smallest way. This is an evolution, a slow evolution, like Stephen was saying. It doesn't happen overnight. Slowly we're evolving into the remembrance of our oneness, and that if I hurt you, I'm actually hurting myself. And so this shift is not happening to us, it's actually happening through us, because we are all this one energy that is, everyone is feeling it in their own way. And so when we start to peel that veil back a little bit, which is slow because we're still in a low age, when you look at how these cycles go cyclically, and they're 24,000 years of descending and ascending ages, we're only in the beginning of the second age moving up. I mean, there's still 2 more ages higher than us that are so much more evolved than we can even imagine. That we're just peeling back this layer of remembering that, hey, wait, if I'm putting out negative stuff in the environment, then I'm hurting myself in the process of this. It actually, then we start to change the way we see other people and experience the world. And that is what is going to change our structures, because the structures that have been in place for the last hundreds of years are not working for the people. And everyone knows this. And that's why we're all feeling this angst, and we don't want this anymore. And so what I feel we need to do is focus on what it is that we do want, not what we don't want, not what we don't like anymore. That's already going to be gone. What do we want to create? and you be the change. What is it, Gandhi that said, be the change you wish to see in the world?
Oh, yeah.
Is that him?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gandhi says this. And so he's right? You focus on what you can do. And I know we can talk about that, and we will get into like the things that you can do now, because there are things that we can do now. We aren't on our own island like, oh, let's just see what happens and sit and watch. No, we actually we have sovereignty, and we have responsibility to take action within ourselves, that it is all within us. It is not out there. There is no out there. It's
There
in
is
here.
no out there. I like that.
There's no out there. There's nothing out there. It's in here. We think that God is out there, that, no, it's all inside
all
of
here.
us.
Right. Thank you for that clarification, bringing it down to some of us who've not studied this as much. Thank you. Stephen, I know I cut you off. You were headed down a direction, but I wanted to make sure we were clarifying some of this for
Yeah,
all
no,
of
it's good. It's good. There's the idea of scapegoating.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been most, I would say, I don't like to use the word toxic, it's overused, but it has been very toxic recently. But we've seen it now since the beginning of the 20th century, where it's like the king wants more territory, he takes it, or the queen wants more territory, she takes it. You see that all over British history and Spanish and so on. But now we get to these points where huge ideologies have now created enemies in groups of people. And so you see it in the Nazis, you see it in communism, capitalism, all over the place. And now everyone, it happens to be arguing and scapegoating and blaming each other, shouting and screaming at each other. And this is incredibly important to understand, because in the new awareness, we are vulnerable to being manipulated like that.
Yep.
And we are vulnerable to going into one camp of I'm right, and it's the old world is you're going to hell. This case now, you're of some other camp you don't like, and you're this awful people, and they say fascist, communist, all that horrible things. It's clearly extremes, it's not the same
Right.
as Hitler, it's not the same. And so I've just mean like on a day-to-day level, there are extremes out there, I know that. But the idea of scapegoating, this is part of the blaming and the ego, and then we form into these groups of people. And this is a big part of the new consciousness. And if you're not aware, you can get easily pointed all over the place. That's my answer to your blame thing, is to be aware of scapegoating and to see it. Jenny and I did a Ask the Guide segment yesterday. We recorded one, and Jenny was in a trance. But when we went through it, it very much was saying now is the time to forgive people and your life. And if you had disagreements, is to like shake hands and say, you know what, both of us were kind of manipulated on some level.
Yeah.
And you're still my uncle and I love you. And that was a big message that came through Ask the Guides when that segment comes out, you guys. That's my...
And wouldn't you say last night, Karen and I were watching, and I agree with you, and we were watching some funny documentary, like B-roll type documentary. I don't know if it wasn't even PBS. It was like I don't know how we found it, but it was just fascinating. And it was talking about, here's all the conspiracies out there. They started digging into some of this, actually, a lot of quantum physics. They talked a lot about, they were discussing how, just like we're talking about like the blame and wanting to do this. And they were saying that why it's important to understand what's happening at the conscious level is because we can hold back the age. Like if we don't move forward, if we don't take steps to forgive, to make these conscious, I guess you could say positive decisions that are going to collectively help all of us, then it does hold us back into this place that we don't really want to be in, right?
Agreed. A midlife crisis is a good way to look at this. All of a sudden you wake up one day and nothing works and you don't like it, and you got this angsty feeling, or this people feel dead inside and stuck and lost, and something is ending, and it's initiated by something you don't see. That's an individual. But now we're all going through a transition point where that is happening on some evolutionary global level, and it wants to end things. Now it's turmoil because there's still free will. Like you can have a midlife crisis and just deny it for years, and like not and go on. Like you can have one and be destructive. We see people blowing up jobs, careers, marriages, and so it's something similar in that mechanism, I think.
I also want to point out that this whole paradigm shift is not just a cultural thing,
Mhm.
it's spiritual, it's actually physical. There are people in our kind of world who work in spirituality and consciousness that are talking about a biological change within our DNA.
Mhm.
Ooh.
And, Richard Rudd is the one who created the gene keys. He's one that speaks about this a lot. And there are other people as well. But if you're interested in learning more about that, Richard Rudd has a very unique, he had an incredible 3-day experience when he was in his 20s. Like went into this place. He wasn't on any kind of plant medicine or anything. And he got all this information that created the gene keys. And so apparently we're going through some kind of also a biological shift. And so it's it's the full spectrum of shift that is happening within us. So let's not focus just on the cultural of like, political stuff. I mean, we see that. It's obvious that there's everything there is falling apart. But everything else is as well.
Mhm.
And not actually falling apart, it's a reorientation to our truth.
Yeah.
So the truth is starting to come into the light. And that's why all these dark things that have been happening underground are starting to come to the surface because light is shining on them and they can't hide anymore. With all the things that we aren't going to go into, but we know that are unveiling themselves,
Yeah.
coming up from the mud because we're shining light on them, and they can't hide. So people are being exposed, and that is devastating to witness, but also so very important to get out of, right? Necessary to break free from this and these people who've suffered greatly because of it.
Uh, I think when this truly comes apart and you see it, people are going to be horrified, and that's already began. However, there's a dark side of that. Remember, I told you opposites magnify. So now we
Mhm.
see the dark part, and you can get attached to darkness, go into that, and like, oh my God, I can't handle this. I need a drink. Like, that would be a valid response or more, escape
Right.
somewhere and just pretend it doesn't happen. Like, I've been
Yeah.
in all of those places. So that's a dark part of it, but this is both dark and light. We now are in a situation, if you listen to people online, I mean, there's some crazy stuff out there, but if you listen to it, we now have such a shift in understanding of life, the spiritual part especially, which is almost like another dimension at this point. That shock will crush people too, and it's a positive one, such as angels are real, orbs, entities, beings, they're all coming back and forth, and if we got all this access to something now we don't even understand, and so even that frightens people. They say in the Bible,
Mhm.
like Jesus was asked, why do you teach in parables? And he basically says, well, if I told them what really goes on,
Right.
they'll reject and stone me. He
Shoot
says
it
something
anyway.
like that. And
Yeah.
so imagine
Yeah.
now the beautiful part of this will be so shocking. And they call it ontological shock is the term that's
Mhm.
often used. So there's a positive part, but this is why how do we navigate and steer through that? And that's the good part.
That is
Yeah.
I'm so glad
Yeah.
you said, Stephen, because, I think we tend to think of time and the progression of humanity in a very linear fashion, right? Some of us have.
Mhm.
And that we've only progressed from back in the day. You think about the Bible days, you think about, I grew up as, I've mentioned before, I grew up Christian and, understanding that like, okay, oh, they didn't understand now. Technology's more advanced. We have vehicles, not horse and buggy, whatever. But the reality is last night, even we were watching this thing and they were talking about computers and AI, and they were talking about that what the way that computer like numerically mathematically works, like the zeros and the ones, it's a language, computer language, machine language is way more advanced than the language that we use. And so what happens is this computer language has to actually dumb it down so that we understand it, right? So we are the more rudimentary at this point in
Mhm.
time, it appears, the way that we communicate. I mean, we've talked before about telepathy, right? And how, I mean, this isn't just for people that love talking about conscious things and get into woo-woo. Telepathy is a real thing that has been proven scientifically and has just been hushed. But I only bring this up, Stephen, to say that I just wanted to point out my study of the yugas so far, and I know both of you have studied it much more the times, but we are not the most advanced, right? Like there were dark ages at points, but we almost, I don't know what I'm trying to get into here. Like this, we are not at the most advanced stage of existence yet,
No.
right?
Not even.
And for context for people, for context to people, if you look at ancient civilizations, they were able to do things far beyond what can be done today. The pyramids,
Right.
if you've seen the scans of what's underneath them, if that's correct, it's very controversial, but if that's correct, it's like a massive underground turbine or something. It's mind-boggling. And so now you get to the point of like 1 trillion galaxies in the known universe. And there's other universes outside the universe. And all of a sudden, like, oh my God, we're very, very small. At the same time, don't forget the philosophy that says all of the universe, cosmos, reality, God is inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's trying to come through. So it's a wild time to live. So the Yuga cycle is this idea of like these golden ages that all the great civilizations talked about. There's a decline, a forgetting, a crash, a fall. It goes dark like a winter. And now we're in spring. The ice is melting, and all of a sudden now it's gushing, and it's panicking. But this is part of this cycle of opening again. It's the Yuga's
So
book
we don't
is
have a
I highly
choice.
recommend.
So let me just clear this up. So the cycles that are there, it's like the cycles are the cycles and we're just in them, or do we get choice to say we are going to move into a higher age and we're going to stay in the higher age? Why would we ever want to go back through another dark age?
This is really, this is important because we're talking about what is happening right now on this planet. And you, as an individual soul, we're evolving all the time. And we can incarnate and do incarnate in a vast number of planets. We don't just incarnate on planet Earth. And I know this people may say, oh, that's so woo-woo. It's really reality when you see, and we don't even know how much is out there, but there are so many planets and so much happening because it's it's collective, but then there's this, our individual evolution, which is different than what we're talking about as the cycles of the greater. There's the macro and the micro, right?
Yeah. I'm almost certain I'm part of a group of souls that incarnate. We choose to incarnate at this time because of this. And that's why there's so many light workers coming, so many sensitives, so many savants, so much, because it's part of that new consciousness coming in.
The autists, they are very advanced souls.
Yeah.
Teaching us telepathy, opening up the understanding of remembrance of who we are. That the second, I've kind of listened to a few of that second season episode of the telepathy tapes.
It's really good.
It's so good. Oh
yeah, that's actually in some ways even better.
We're talking about the yugas as a cycle, a planetary cycle, and actually, our whole galaxy, things shift, coming closer to the center of the galaxy and farther away from the center, which has the most light. And so we have chosen to incarnate here now on this planet, some of us consciously to help usher in this new age. Some of us are here, yes, and all of us are here consciously, we feel, right? We have consciously chosen to do this. And then, but other souls are here for different reasons. Know that we have a plethora. We can't even imagine how many planets we could choose to incarnate on, depending on where our soul's journey is and where we need in terms of our growth. So I know Yogananda was asked in his light when he was embodied, what is this the only planet that we incarnate on? And he kind of like chuckled and said, no. What was the exact quote, Stephen? Do you remember what
I don't
he said?
remember exactly, but
It was
teeming
something.
teeming with planets. There's some phrase like that.
Yeah, like there's a, and we don't, because it's all about experience and entertainment. And so we get to be put on a million different kind of spacesuits, so to say,
Yeah,
right?
and yeah,
Not just human form.
yeah. Well said, Jenny. The other thing, Nikki, that's important here is that the point of like it's such a tough time. Like if we choose to come here, are you kidding me? This place is so messed up. I don't
Yeah.
want to be living in 16th century Spain. There is in the ego this basic thing that it wants. Give me a smooth, easy pass and avoid the difficult one. That's the ego's like basis of likes and dislikes.
Right.
Now imagine you're in this amazing astral realm. You're hanging out with the angels. They're playing harps and stuff. It's pretty awesome. And then they come by and go, "Hey, we got a planet in real distress.
Okay.
You want to
Yeah.
come? You're going to forget who you are. We're going to send you down through a vortex. You're going to land there and not know for a while. You're going to have to figure it out like amnesia, waking up from it. But when you do, it's going to be the wildest, most amazing ride of your life. That's
And this,
that's
And
kind
what
of
do you,
what's like.
and this is why so many people, you talk to, there's a lot of, some people do and some people don't. Some people feel a very like specific and intense calling. Like they know they're here for a purpose. And I've met people who don't. Genuinely are just like,
Yeah.
this is what we do. And it's like, if people know me, and I know you too as well, we're just constantly like the betterment and helping humanity and loving on people. And we're less concerned about how much money we're making or less concerned about. And that is a very, I mean, I've met people like, you guys have as well and so you're to that point, like, yes, we chose to be here. Even if we didn't, think through every detail, we have chosen this for a purpose.
Yes. And very, very important here is everything in this planet, especially this time period, is mixed. So you're getting all kinds of different levels of consciousness. Can I give you guys an example here? This seems to come to
Please.
mind to help people kind of grasp this. So if we look back in history, in the 1950s, we have a 20th century idealism, material idealism comes up of this is the man, the woman, the job, the white picket fence. That was coming out of that era. I would say manufactured by industrialists. So that's probably not that controversial. In the 60s, you know what? That whole cart got turned upside down.
Yes,
And
it
now
did.
it's like, make love, not war, peace out, man.
Right.
And they're exploring consciousness and mushrooms. And,
Yep.
that to me
Woodstock
would be like that's a pop opening of the new consciousness.
was a pop.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
something in society shuts that down hard and it gets
Yep.
distorted. And then Woodstock, I don't know, there's a documentary about how they tried to recreate Woodstock in the 90s
Oh, yeah.
and it was the biggest disaster ever.
Oh,
And
yeah. I watched it.
it's a horrific documentary. And so by that point, by the 90s, you get the grunge guys like me, who are shouting and screaming and in protest. And so like that whole thing opens and it crushes. But the 50s, 60s gives an idea of the story of separation, which is like me, this is my house, my fence, don't cross it, like this
Mhm.
is it. And then a story of what we would call connection or oneness or unity, which is now, hey, let's all love each other, man, And so you have these two things, the old one hanging on from the age, it's a new version of it, it's hanging on tight, then you have this new thing open and clashing. And so we need it somewhere in the middle, I think,
Mhm.
because I'm the guy who like give it all away and I need people to help me like pay my bills. So we need somewhere in the middle, I think. And our teachers talked of the golden middle path, right, Jenny? And spiritual, material prosperity. And I think we need a balancing act now. But that's how I see it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, I think right now a lot of us, a lot of people. I'm not saying I'm one of them who feel floundering. I'm not floundering around. I know exactly what I'm here for. I know my purpose. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing my best. We're all doing our best, but it's this. People are feeling floundering. They're floundering because there is no the stability that they of stability that they thought they had is falling away, and that is terrifying to people. So they're holding on for dear
Yeah.
life of the old ways because they feel like what else is there? And
Mhm.
that's where we come in. I feel like as light workers and holding to the new consciousness, understanding the new what is new and what is happening, how we are sovereign beings, that we are not separate, and that we're moving from fear to love, that we're moving from separation to unity consciousness, that we're moving from external authority to internal understanding and our own guidance. So understanding our intuition, understanding that we have control of ourselves, and finding those like-minded people to be in community with, to live in as we have been taught in our path of like high thinking and simple living, right? Like what are we here for? What is the purpose of our existence? And I think those are big questions that people are starting now to ask themselves.
Yeah.
Oh,
What
yeah.
am I here for? To get a big paycheck and to like, as the golden dream, the American dream would say, you know, have the house and get the thing, and then, you know, we get all this, we work really hard, and then to what end? To retire, and then what is the percentage of people who die right after retirement?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
It's
that's
huge.
the material age, right? That's the, you know,
It's
Kali
old.
Yuga, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so,
No
let
more.
me ask this, just for the listeners who, like me, are sitting here like, okay, yep, if all this is true, which I believe it is, makes total sense if you just look through history, if you study this enough and you experience your own self and the divinity and, the collective, you know, if you tap into that collective consciousness, or aware of it, not tap into it, but are aware of that collective consciousness, all this makes total sense. I guess I would love to ask, what now then? So with knowing this, so with this understanding, with giving this attention and saying, okay, we're looking at it. We could talk about the why, which I think we're doing a bit here today together. But what does that mean? Like as individual souls in this greater collective humanity, what then, in knowing this, where do we go with this? What do we do with this? How do we live moving forward so that we continue to elevate, right? Together. Like how do we do that? And especially when we feel like we don't have a lot of control in what's happening at a grander scale in the world. So what do we do?
Well,
No
if
big
I
deal. I
may.
know. What do we do, guys? Just give
Yeah.
us the answers real quick and we'll,
Yeah,
put it on
Jenny,
a
you
bold.
start.
Well, what we do first and foremost is stop watching the negative stuff. Stop
Yeah.
letting yourself get into fear and worry. I know that's not always easy, but that is really important. Turn off the negativity that is around you. Turn off the negativity and get into some stillness and go internally for a moment. Just go sit outside on the ground. Like, the very least, go put your bare feet on the earth, look up to the sky, and be in gratitude that you're alive. You know, start very simply with little tiny things and go into practicing what your inner guidance is saying, your intuition is saying. What are you called to do? What are you called to create in your life? But you can't do that if you're focused on all the stuff that's going on outside of us, because our attention is being pulled into the dark energies, and we have to pull ourselves out of that. And that's not hard. Turn it off. Just turn it off. And then go step outside and go into yourself and say, what can I do to make the world a better place? And all you need to do is be in a place of either love or joy or peace in your heart, and you're making a change. Because we are energetic beings that affect each other. So if you're sitting in peace or joy or love or calm in your heart, and if you can't find joy or love, or, you're really struggling with the fear, just take a deep breath, go outside, and be in gratitude for your life, for the good in your life. Because I know there's good in everyone's life in some degree. If you're alive and you're breathing, there's good.
Right.
Because you're breathing, right? So find whatever it is you can, the smallest little nugget of peace or calm, and start to create more of that in yourself, because that will help the collective, it does. And when you are living in fear or anger or hatred, you are feeding that energy.
You treated source as like our source being external when really the source is internal. And so maybe it's shifting from an external element being our source to internal.
We have control of ourselves, and we are so powerful, we forget. So if we start to feel love inside of us and we start to show love to others, that ripples out like a pebble in the water. It goes
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful, beautiful, Jenny. I'll try to rein this in, you guys. I would say to people right now as we go through this paradigm shift, before we do anything else, there's going to be some grief and grief practices, ways of acceptance. We're going to be angry. There's a grieving process. Like, I can't believe it. Oh God, I do believe it. Like that's important to wash away this. And to your point of external, internal projection, realizing that things like the media are stimulating us, so we project it out on each other, and that's part of the manipulation. So that's surrender. So I would say we need to form a new kind of ethical construct of how to relate to each other, knowing that we're interconnected, knowing that we're bounce back mechanisms. So if I'm mad at you, I'm actually just mad at myself. We need to then look at non-harming or ahimsa as a simple foundation for how to live. I wrote an article on Substack on that, you guys, just a couple of days ago. And so this is very important, like Dr. King, Gandhi's method of nonviolence, which is not stand there and get hit. It's an attitude in your heart. Like, we need an ethical basis. I meet parents who are not Christian who will send the kids to Sunday school because it's the only place they can get an ethical construct. And they'll do it and swallow a lot of stuff they don't believe in because they want like the kids to learn basic principles. I'm like, hold on a second, why don't we have that everywhere? Then we've got to look at a bit of discipline in ourselves. I speak for myself here. And we've got to really like have discipline to be in a bit of discomfort to do things like going to the gym. It's hard the first day. Like, we need to have that level of mentality. Like, this is a spiritual battle, I believe, on a global level, personal level, societal level. And so we're going to have to like suit up, to say an American expression. It's a very American thing to say, suit up. And so there's that part. The other part we must not forget that's so important is we are connected inherently by an energy field of love that is acting in our self-interest, that wants to show us the way forward. And we've got to you get connected by it through all the things that we teach and do, but we have to be able to be in that energy, withdraw into it, and ask it what it wants. And we are divine beings. And if you can have those bases of resisting the discipline and connecting, I believe that's the template, and you can do it any way you like. That's my passion point,
Wow.
you guys.
Very good. Yes. And the pathway forward isn't about figuring it all out either. Like, we're not here to figure it all out, right? We're here to become more of our authentic self.
Yeah.
And be honest with who you truly are and be it. Like, we've been afraid to show our true colors to each other in a lot of ways. When you look at social media and like, it's like, oh, we can put on this show, but what's happening underneath? And then there are people who spill it all out. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but like, we are here to remember our divinity. Yeah. Oh, I can keep going.
I want
So
you to.
much.
It's amazing. I just wrote this little my best friend is turning 45. Shout out to Christina. Next weekend, and we're putting together a little itinerary for her birthday. And she may or may not hear this before, but there's a quote that said, it was just a birthday itinerary I typed up, and it says, "A quiet celebration of becoming, each year a deeper return to self." And it spoke to me just because I think we like to think of things as arrivals, right? Like departure and arrival. And really, it's just a constant becoming. It's a constant evolution and growing. And, I think for some reason where we are in our mentality today in this age, we like starts and ends, everything, right? We're on, the platform we use to record this right now. It has a start button and an end button, and that's where we like it. And what if we didn't have those justifications and it was just a constant evolution of growth? And I mean, that is the way the natural world
Mhm.
works, right? Whether you believe in evolution, creation, I mean, I think they are absolutely, they are the same. I mean, it's things constantly are evolving and growing. And yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
It makes me think of the Fibonacci sequence, which I've been looking at more recently, and how these numbers, you add the first, that 1 and 1 is 2, and then 2 and 1, 1 and 2 is 3, and
Mhm.
then 2 and 3 is 5, and then it goes and it adds on to itself. And everything in nature does that.
Yes.
And it's a
Yes.
spiral.
Yeah.
And we do it as well. Everything is a spiral. And my husband and I were talking about this just 2 nights ago, and we were talking about the Fibonacci sequence. And what I was just listening to, hearing someone talk about this, was, okay, so see these number sequences, and what you do when you pull back into this next number and you bring it forward, and it creates the next Fibonacci number, right?
Hmm.
So 3 goes back and pulls 2 into itself and goes to 5. And if we are doing that, we are going back to our experiences, pulling it into our current and catapulting into the next. Like, it's this infinite movement and cycle that never ends, that
Right.
keeps expanding. Because even the universe as we know it is continuously expanding. It's not ever stagnant,
Yeah.
which we cannot wrap our little brains around.
Yet.
But the thought that we are this evolutionary consciousness that never stops expanding is just so, to me, thrilling beyond thrilling.
Right.
It is thrilling, and for me, the way that we evolve now is through a conscious choice.
Mm.
Choice to stand up, a choice to say enough to abuse. It's the choice to say I'm going to do this and that, and it's hard. It's called a battle for a reason, and we have external things, and I get cross with society because it makes it so hard to do things that should be important to us as a society. But there's this point inside where we're battling our own negative attachments, ideas, and so this conscious choice is how we evolve more quickly. And that's not my opinion. I've read things by evolutionary biologists around it. It's a new form of evolution, and that's part of this new age. And new age has got a bad connotation, unfortunately, but I think of it as a paradigm. It's something vast that affects us, but we have, in a way, greater access to higher intelligence now. And that
And every
from
age
what
is
I
newer,
understand,
right? As we
every
progress, every
yeah,
age is newer than the last. So it's not a positive or
yeah,
negative. It just is. Right.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just is. But we have greater access now to the goodies. But we've got technologically, we've got access to also all the dangerous toys, and that's a
Right.
problem. And you see it, and I'm going to pick a little bit on some of the tech entrepreneurs, but when you watch documentaries about them, they're like so immature,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're so brilliant. And I'm like, oh my God, we need someone with a more grown-up consciousness to be in control of these things. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. It's this thing leapt forward, but we stalled.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna like get back and lift our consciousness and live from these principles. And I think that's where it sinks back up, if we can get there.
Yeah.
I feel strongly we can and we will.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
I have all the hope, all the knowing. I mean, and first and foremost, like, quite honestly, it's it's ho- it's all, I'll use the term God because everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? It's all God. It's all God playing God in expanding, and there's nothing outside. There's nothing that exists outside of the source consciousness. And so all this stuff that's happening is that energy creating and drawing experiences and experiencing. And so if we can know that really and believe and trust that, I go to trust and surrender, like let
Right.
go and say, okay, I trust that there's a divine energy here at play that I don't understand and I don't know, but I know. And that's not easy because surrendering is hard for us. We think we need to always do.
Yeah.
And we can be in the doing, we can be.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have to do, but we're doing if we come at it from the space of surrender and trust that there's something greater happening here that is beyond our deepest understanding as humans, but our soul knows.
Yeah.
Our soul knows why we're here. Our soul knows the bigger picture. Our soul understands this evolutionary process. It's the intellect and the ego that gets confused and starts to try to control it and make it a certain way and try to force an outcome, have expectations, and that causes us suffering.
Yeah.
And I think that what typically happens is we talk about staying status quo. You just want to, I mean, people that don't want to progress, that want to stay, as we saw, like people want to go backwards, right? This is what I already know versus like what could be. And, not to get boring here, but Karen and I run our business and, we work with a lot of different clients. And part of the work we do is, okay, we had to analyze your business and operationally or sales wise, there needs to be some mechanism that's going to help you grow. And sometimes that's adopting new technology, right? Because the technology they had might be old school, might not be serving them. It might be spending too much money on things. And so oftentimes it's really interesting. And a lot of people that have gone through, projects like we're doing where we overhaul companies, we go in and we're like, okay, here's this new technology. And you'll watch the employees because you'll see very quickly, some people want to adopt it. And, specifically, not always, but a lot of people, they're maybe older or have done something longer. They're like, oh, no, 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 no. And they don't want to. The ones that end up adopting it, finally, they push against it so hard. Like, no, I don't want this new technology. No, don't give it to me. But when they start to understand it and use it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I say that the parallel here is if we stop, I think out of fear or discomfort, right? And embrace the new and embrace it. And I don't mean to carelessly just adopt every ideology out there and just move into whatever and just stop paying bills or stop living in, the societal ways that we do, but to allow for this transition to happen around and in us and not even energetically reject it. Would you agree with that? Like, how do we take this, starting with our own internal source? Are you following me? Like,
I think so.
how do we agree? I guess what I'm trying to say is the knowledge is a part of this. There's the knowing that is internal, which is beyond mental knowledge, because I think our brains are half the time just a calculator. But if we didn't reject the new and embraced what is to come, and as you were saying, Jenny, to embrace love and positivity and not clinch to what we've known out of fear, it's going to be a lot easier. And instead of the ego trying to hold on and not suffer, not go through discomfort. No, tell me, you feel free. I'm just.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in there, Nikki. There's a lot of things in there. Going back to your tribe and the progressive, I forget what it was called, that book you were reading, and we talked about in the beginning. So
Progressive
we have to be careful here because especially around technology and these things, I'm not anti-technology. I love that we're doing this on Riverside. Thank you very much. Great platform. But we have to be careful here because this time period goes in two. And so you think you're progressing, I shake my head, and then you find out you're in an ideology that maybe isn't that.
Okay.
You think you're something, and then you go an ism at the end of it, and like, hold on a second, that's not really what I want. There's that part to consider. Even surrender and trust. Like, I'm all about surrendering and trust, but surrender has a deep meaning of opening to a higher reality. It's not, you're surrendering like my old ego's ways. I thought I should do this. I have to trust now that it's this. But we have to then juxtapose that with action.
Yes.
And so now, what is right action, which is difficult to determine? We have to discern that, and then we make a new kind of action. And this is Bhagavad Gita, which says, like, basically says, Lord, you take the reins, I trust you, but I'll be the one to charge into battle.
Right.
And so that's the balance now. It's not the passive. It's not just wait because God's going to take care of it or the UFO is going to land on the White House lawn. I don't think it's happening. I think we're the ones we're waiting for, and we have to get up. know?
We are. You're absolutely right. And that's the thing with that, even that word surrender, people can misunderstand what that is. It is not passive. It's very active. It's surrendering to the outcome and trusting that we do have to take action. We do have to take the right steps. And those right steps come, we know that when we know what the right step is when we have an internal life. Like when we trust our intuition, when we start to understand what that is and discern the ego versus the higher self, who's talking and which part of you do you want to listen to, and and be part of creation. We're co-creators with this energy. Be
Right.
part of the solution, right? Because there's a show. You guys, I don't know if you've ever read this, an old book, A Brave New World.
Mm-hmm.
We had to read it. I would read it when I was a kid, and it's a old book. I think it was written in the 1950s or
Mm-hmm.
something, or 40s.
Huxley, right? That's, yeah.
Yes,
Aldous Huxley.
Aldous Huxley. And there's a show called The Brave New World, and I was curious. I'm like, huh, what is this? Because it's this idea that everything's happy, everybody's happy, but man, are they controlled beyond controlled. But they think they're not. It's like you have to really be
Yeah.
careful on what you are bringing in, because the technology is just a stepping stone to our evolution. It's not the answer.
Right.
It's actually pretty primitive when we, not that we know, I don't know, what happened on the higher ages, but I'm pretty sure that it's
No,
very
I think they're
primitive.
mimicking things that are happening in consciousness and trying to create a technological one and then trap you into it. I think that's what's happening. That's my take, at least, not to get too dystopian. But there's something to be said now. We're in an age of energy. So there's a need for massive amounts of energy, but we have unlimited energy at our disposal in our bodies, in our cells, in our nervous system, in our energy body. And this is the edge, and this thing is open, and we're unhinged in a way, or unhooked from the old world control mechanisms of thou shalt not, and we're kind of
Mhm.
floating in space. And so it's time now to anchor.
It is. It is. And this is so rich and so meaty, and we may have to do a part 2. So maybe we'll consider having a part 2 of this, because obviously there's still a lot here to unpack. And I know this has already been so much for me to digest. And I'm sure for our listeners, like, this is, it's wonderful. It actually, for me, it's encouraging, because I think there's so many questions that float around, and you don't know, you don't know which end is up sometimes. Thank you both for diving into this very critical topic for this critical time, I think. And, I feel like for me, and I think for the both of you, we all feel almost like it's a duty to share some of this information and to help people navigate, because it can be very isolating walking through a lot of these questions. And the good news is, I think there is a lot of hope here. And it excites me that I already am experiencing being more centered in self and understanding where that source lies and how to navigate despite what is happening, how to continue to help the greater consciousness and this revolution unfold. So, with that, I just want to say thank you both for always such wonderful teachings, and stand by for our next episode. Definitely jump in and listen, if you haven't, to our other episodes, and also our mini-sodes that are Ask the Guides. In between each of these longer segments, they are a shorter segment, where Jenny and Stephen will channel their spirit guides to answer difficult questions. If you have difficult questions that are coming up, any questions, difficult or not, and you just would like to put them out there, we are accepting questions. Connect at wisdompathways.life. Please submit those questions, and we will read them over our mini-sodes, and they will ask spirit guides and channel and provide a reading through those. So we welcome more and more of those questions. And thank you, as always, for listening. So much love to both of you, Jenny, Stephen, and our wonderful listeners.
Thank you, Nikki.
Of
Thank
Thank
you,
course.
Jenny.
you. Love you.
And we will see you next time. And as always, remember, you do have a path forward. So we'll see you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you are leaving feeling more peace, clarity, and light as you navigate your journey forward. While there's no promotional purpose behind our podcast, we understand that things can arise that may be helpful to process or work through. Jenny and Stephen are co-founders of Wisdom Pathways, a sacred place of personal transformation. They offer soul mediumship, somatic healing, and spiritual resources for all walks of life. If you feel lost or stuck, are in transition, or awakening to something more, visit wisdompathways.life, or you can email any one of us at connect@wisdompathways.life. Tune in again this time next week if you'd like, and as always, share with a friend who might benefit as well. Peace and love.